Hello everybody and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Farmers Insurance Initial Research Show. A lot to get into, exciting week. One of the premier courses on the PGA Tour coming up this week, as well as some interesting info about the tournament this week. So all statistics are provided by FantasyNational.com. Amazing resource. Go check it out. I say it every episode. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without it. It allows me to be as successful, give or take, as successful as I am at what I'm doing. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much better DFS player, all around. It's an amazing tool. Go check it out. It's well worth the investment. The links to my social media, as well as the email to get in touch with me, is in the description. The social media links is where I post my betting cards and useful or interesting information and research that I find throughout the week and during the tournament, as well as that email aforementioned earlier is for the bonus content. So if you want to be a part of that, then reach out to me at that email. Provide my kind of DFS strategies and bonus videos and whatnot. So if you want to be a part of the bonus content, make sure you reach out to me at that email. Lastly, chat is open. Jump in there. Let me know how you did this week at the American Express. I want to hear about your success and what maybe if it didn't work, what information or who'd you play, what'd you take from me, and how much did I fuck you over? Just regular stuff. If you just want to jump in chat and make fun of me, then all well and good too. What are you looking forward to for this week? Any early ideas that you have and whatnot? So let's do our initial research for the 2022 Farmers. The tournament fact sheet is up. We are in La Jolla, I believe is how it's pronounced, for the Farmers Insurance Open at iconic Torrey Pines. This is where the U.S. Open was played last year. Jon Rahm winning his first major with the incredible back-to-back birdie putts on 17 and 18. Very difficult course. It certainly won't play as difficult for the regular Farmers Insurance, but it's still a really, really tough course. As you can see here, almost 7,800 yards. It is an extremely long course, a very difficult course. It demands a lot of its players. And that is the South course, the iconic, the most famous of the two. But this is another two course or alternate course road. It's not three courses like we just had at the American Express. It's two courses like the RSM. Guys will play the South course one day, the North course one day, and then the entire weekend is on the South course. So before we get further into it, and before I forget, because I'm liable to do so, the tournament this week is being played starting Wednesday. So Wednesday through Saturday. So be aware of that for your DFS contests, all your bets and whatnot. So that's the big information to take away from just an overall tournament standpoint. Sure, chat is up. So looking more specifically at the South course, they are pretty smallish greens in comparison to the rest of the PGA Tour. PGA Tour average green size is about 6,000 square feet, so these are a little bit smaller. There's not really a whole lot of water hazards or trouble that you can get into. It's mainly just bunkers and just narrow fairways, just more rough than anything. The greens at the South course are POA, and they're always fast. They're always fast. The difference with this course and a lot of the West Coast courses, or the West Coast swing or whatever, is that the fairways are kikuyu. And kikuyu grass is well known for being sticky. It is difficult to chip with if you're not used to it. So kikuyu grass is going to be a sub-theme this week, and I really take it into consideration around the green, say scrambling and strokes gained around the green and whatnot. So it's going to be something to definitely keep our eye on. The Torrey Pines was originally architected by the Bells in 1957, and then Rees Jones most recently in 2019. We're going to be focusing on this course as 3 of the 4 rounds will be played on it. And this one's extremely difficult, but not to be overshadowed as the North course. And this used to be a pushover. They've actually toughened this one up now. It's not so much a pushover. It can hold its own. It's definitely easy, but it's not the birdie fest that it once was. So Torrey Pines North, average green size to the rest of the tour, right at 6,000 square feet. These are actually more narrow fairways, but a lot less bunkers and less rough. So that's why it plays easier, as even though the fairways are a little bit narrower, a little bit less, there's just not as much sand or bunkers to find, and there's no water in play. The biggest difference between the North and the South, other than difficulty, yardage, whatnot, is that these greens are pure bent, but everything else is generally the same. You've got the Kikuyu fairways and the Kikuyu rough. North course was most recently renovated by Tom Weiskopf in 2016. So that's a look at the 2 courses from a tournament fact sheet standpoint. Again, main thing to take away, Kikuyu, especially around the green, the rough and such, fast greens, not a lot of danger as far as water, just very, very, very narrow fairways, and the South course is extremely long, extremely difficult. So that is Torrey Pines, kind of an overlook. Now let's move on to Fantasy National, and a loaded field, as is normally the case for the Farmers Insurance. So your strokes gained total for the past 36 rounds, you've got Sam Burns, John Rahm, Sung Jae, Aaron Wise, and Justin Thomas, your top 5. The rest of the top 10, Taylor Gooch, Bryson DeChambeau, Mac Hughes, Matthew Wolff, and Mito Pereira. These stats do not take into account the last round of the Amex quite yet. For example, or maybe not even any of it. Yeah, so none of the Amex is in here yet. The best way to tell, Johnny Vegas didn't make the cut at the Amex, much to my chagrin. So the Amex is not in here yet. It will be here tomorrow for the Data Dive show. So that was a look at the strokes gained total. I think one of the first things I want to do, even before going to the course breakdown, since we know that the South course especially is just extremely long, let's just take a look at strokes gained total from an over 7,400 metric. Now, there's only been one tournament in the past 6 months with that. That's the Century, and that's really kind of an outlier because it doesn't play as long as that yardage with all the hills and undulation and stuff. So let's broaden this to the last year, the last calendar year. And we have now all the way back to last year's Farmers. So 19 rounds. And your top strokes gained total on long courses in the past calendar year: Jordan Spieth, Xander, Charlie Hoffman, John Rahm, and Corey Connors, followed by Grillo, Will Zalatoris, Patrick Reed, Johnny Vegas, and Bryce Garnett. Bryce Garnett's interesting to be in the top 10 here. Strokes gained total on long courses. Look, tee to green is pretty bad. Ball striking's bad. I guess he gets it done with the short game, but still. In the top 10, what are these rounds? Wells Fargo, which he didn't play well. The Valero, he didn't play well. Okay, so he's all of his stats are coming from the Corrales and the Puerto Rico Open, which we don't get the sub stats of. We just get strokes gained total. That makes more sense. Okay. So when he is stateside on long courses, Bryce Garnett hadn't played very well. He did make the cut this week at the Amex, but the Amex, the stadium course is no 7,700 yards. So anyway, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. That was weird and whatnot. But let's take a look at the South course from a breakdown perspective. And we can look at the North course as well, but I'm focused mainly on the South course since 3 of the 4 rounds will be there. For the guys who play the weekend. Again, like we said, it's a 7,700 yard par 72. You have a couple of eagle chances. 5 is a mid-length par 5. Easiest one on the course, plays to about 4/10 under. And then hole 18 can be an eagle opportunity. It is sometimes, it isn't sometimes. But still a very good birdie opportunity. It plays to about a quarter stroke under par. So when you have your 2 easiest holes and they're 4/10 and a quarter stroke under par, you know that this course is tough. Considering the past couple of weeks, we've looked at the Sony and the American Express, where their most difficult holes are about a 1/10 over par. You look here, the hardest difficulty hole at Torrey, the par 4 12th, the mammoth beast that it is, over 500 yards, par 4, plays to almost 4/10 over par. A birdie here or even a par is gaining a lot on the field. You come down, the 9th most difficult hole still plays to a 1/10 over par. 12th, still a little bit over par. So you have to come all the way down to the 13th most difficult hole to find something that plays to level par. It tells you everything you need to know about Torrey Pines. It is very, very difficult. The par 5s really aren't that long. You do have a 615 yard par 5 here on the 9th, and it is certainly not an eagle hole, but it is a birdie opportunity with 2 to 3 good shots. The length comes in a lot on the par 3s and and a couple of par 4s. So par 3s, first one, over 200. We looked at the easiest par 3. That's at 177, but then you have on the back 9, 225 and 227 on the scorecard. And those get lengthened and shortened and all that, but it would not be surprising to see a 240-yard par 3 here at Torrey Pines. Then you've got a few par 4s that are pretty long as well. You've got the 505 here, the 480 stretches a lot of times to close to 500. So a lot of length, and especially with no water on the course, it's just a green mass of land that you have to traverse. It feels like I would not want to imagine this course with water. But there's a look at the scorecard of the breakdown. Strokes gained by shot type. Probably no surprise with a long course, you're going to value strokes gained approach. And because the course is so difficult, around the green is actually going to be more important than off the tee, even though the course is so long. Distance does matter some, but because the course is so difficult, scrambling and working your way for pars and whatnot is going to be very important. So it's going to outweigh off the tee. Of course, putting, if you make putts, you're going to rise to the top of the leaderboard. So there's the top 10. Let's kind of zoom out, look at top 20s. And it starts to narrow up between approach and putting. You have around the green still more important than off the tee. Top 10, which is where we were at first. Approach starts to get a little bit more important. Top 5, approach is now above 1. So approach is gaining more and more in importance, and your average winners, this is 1.2, putting's all the way up to close to 1, but then the off the tee outweighs around the green. To me, I'm still going to be focused more on around the green than off the tee. Avoid the bogeys, scramble your pars, and you're going to do well here at Torrey Pines. Conversely, the strokes gained hole by par, 3s, 4s, and 5s, will change it going the other way. The winners here do well on the par 3s and the par 5s. Not to say the par 4s aren't important, but it's the 3s and the 5s, mainly the 3s, because I want you to see what happens as we work our way down the leaderboard. So these are your winners here, a lot of par 3s and par 5s. Top 5s, look, the 3s already drop, so 5s are pretty far outweighing the 4s and especially the 3s. We work to the top 10, 5s, 4s, and then 3s, and then, I meant to do top 20. Top 20 is still 5, 4s, and 3s. So really the winners are doing very, very well on the par 3s, but consistently the par 5s are the most important part of Torrey Pines. You have, whatever birdies you're going to get, you have to get on the par 5s here at Torrey Pines, because there's not a lot of birdie chances otherwise. So the past couple weeks, I've been focused on birdies. Birdies on easy courses. Birdies are better on easy courses. It's going to be the exact opposite. I might go bogeys avoided on difficult, or pars on difficult, things like that. So that's a look at the strokes gained by par of the hole. Hole composition, very interesting here. You've got a plethora of par 4s from 450 to 500. So in the data dive tomorrow, we'll see if this range is a key factor in who rises to the top of the leaderboards. There isn't a lot of plurality elsewhere. So you see the par 3s. We highlighted the 2 very long par 3s on the scorecard. This one on the scorecard is at 201, so that goes in between these 2 ranges, and then the short-ish par 3 here. The other par 4s, you've got a real short one, although it's not drivable, it is short, and then 2 from 400 to 450 and 1 at 500 plus. And the 2 par 5s are split evenly, 550 to 600, 600 to 650. We'll still look and see at these ranges, see if there's maybe a hidden correlation, but nothing that would jump off importance-wise, graphically at least. It would seem to be 450 and 500 are the most important, but again, that's what the data dive shows for. Approach shot ranges, you can see here, it's a lot of long irons, long iron approaches, 175 to 200, 200 plus, especially 200 plus. So again, we'll look tomorrow to see, are these 2 ranges key to determining who rises to the top of the leaderboard, or is it just the fact that all of the approach shots are coming from here? We'll see. Historic cut line, even though Torrey Pines South is so difficult, remember it wasn't until recently, Weiskopf, I believe, did the North Course in 2019, 2017, one of those 2 years. It wasn't until recently that the North Course really got, I don't want to say brought up to snuff. It was a good off course for this tournament, because it was so night and day between the South and the North Course. And now the North Course can hold its own. It is much easier still than the South Course, but it can come up and bite you if you're not playing well. So if it was just the South Course, you would see cut lines, up in the pluses easily. But with the North Course in play, your cut line's generally about -1. In 2019, it came down to -5. But it hovers around 1 and 2, 1, 2, or 3. It's an average cut, average difficulty cut, just due to the sheer fact that Torrey Pines South is so difficult, and Torrey Pines North generally was just as easy as Torrey Pines was difficult. But now they've justified Torrey Pines North. It's not as bad of a course now as it used to be. Scoring distribution. You see here there's more bogeys than birdies, and there's usually more doubles than eagles, but there's hardly any eagles, and you can see the graph, or you can see the bar of the doubles. Anytime you see more bogeys than birdies, that's a good indication. This course is very difficult. Driving accuracy, just speaking to the slim fairways here at Torrey Pines, accuracy is not very high here. Greens and regulation percentage also lower than the tour average tour event, speaking just to the length of the course. Scrambling also lower here just because the course is difficult. 3 putts are higher here. A lot of people attribute that to the POA. While these are smaller greens, they still have a couple of greens that are pretty expansive, and they're very undulating. So 3 putts and lag putting is going to be very, very important, or 3-putt avoidance and lag putting is going to be very, very important. So that's another metric I usually like to use, especially on, I think I used it last year at the U.S. Open data model, was 3-putt avoidance, because these greens are fast, they're undulating. It's a wild ride on the Torrey Pine greens. Average distance is higher here, but it's not so much further that guys are just trying to bomb it. If you think that a course is not easy to hit, it's just because guys don't care and they're trying to hit it as far as they can. That's not the case here. These guys are still trying to play position. It's just a difficult course. And then green and regulation proximity, just speaking to the length of the approach shots. Even though they're on smaller greens, they are still further away than the average tour event. Almost by, it is more than a full tenth. No, not a full tenth, excuse me, almost 1 full point. 29 3/4, 28 and 5/6. Yeah, I get to show off a little math. I know, I'm a math nerd. Anyway, so there's a look at the course breakdown by scorecard and graphically and such. Let's look at the historic conditions of Torrey Pines. And you will see here that anything that says easy or average is generally the north course. And then just look at the south. Difficult, difficult, difficult. It did play average last year for the Farmers, but difficult, difficult, average, 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 difficult. So no easies here on the south course. No easies. You can get some decent conditions where you can score a little bit, maybe to about a half a stroke or 1 stroke under par. But a lot of times it's going to play over par. You can see here the greens, they're always fast. Sometimes they're even lightning fast. So we're definitely going to be looking at, we're focusing on POA for sure. Don't know how much bent I'm going to take into consideration, considering guys will only play on that course once. I'm definitely going to be looking at POA performance on the greens, fast POA, lightning POA. Hitting the fairways has always been difficult for both courses. That just speaks to the narrowness of the fairways. Course length, definitely going to be looking at long, over 7,400. So there's a look at the past conditions at the Farmers. And while we're on previous conditions and such, let's take a look at some possible comparison courses. And we'll just do this in Fantasy National. Let's go last 50 rounds. I'm going to use the last 2 years just in case. So one of the first things we want to do, greens, we're definitely going to look at some POA. So some POA courses, you got Bethpage, Chambers Bay, Chapultepec, which used to be the WGC Mexico, Riviera, where they're going to be in 2 or 3 weeks for the Genesis. Shinnecock, and Tory. So not a lot of natural POA. Not a lot of natural POA. Just let's try to remember maybe Bethpage, Chapultepec, and Riviera. Those are the three. So I'm going to take POA off because there won't be a lot of straight comparison courses. We're definitely going to look at fast and lightning greens that are over 7,400 yards. Fast and lightning over 7,400. So you've got Augusta. Not a great comparison, especially since this is POA, and that is, I believe, bent down at Augusta National. Bay Hill, which is Arnold Palmer Invitational. There's Bethpage. CC of Jackson. Okay, so that's the Sanderson Farms. There's Chapultepec again. Golf Club of Houston was the old site of the Houston Open. Now it's Memorial Park. Quail Hollow. Wells Fargo. PGA National, which is the Honda. There's Riviera again. TPC Twin Cities, the 3M. Okay. Good stuff there. All right. So looking like Riviera, which makes sense. It's also California. It has the Kikuyu. Riviera might be a really good comp course. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be. Because the rough here can get fairly long if I'm, long rough. Let's add that too. So let's do long rough. Let's do difficult fairways as well. Let's try that. See what this does. Long rough and difficult fairways. You've got Bay Hill, which is the Arnold Palmer again, so that's done it a couple times. There's Bethpage. Caves Valley. I think that was that the Barracuda last year? There's Congressional. Detroit Golf Club. Keene Trace. This is not a very good comparison course because this is the Barbasol. That's easy. Kiowa. Muirfield is the Memorial. Riviera again. So it looks like Riviera is a very, very good one. Let's see. There's Torrey. Deer Run, the John Deere. Harding Park in San Francisco, where Colin won the PGA. Twin Cities again. Okay. It said Waialae. Generally, they play to short rough. It was just long this year just due to the amount of rain they've had. So it looks like Riviera, maybe Bay Hill can be a decent comp course. Long, difficult, fast greens. But definitely seeing Riviera as the best. So I'm going to reset this to kind of the default that I go to. Let's take a look at the tournament history. And I've already sorted this by strokes gained total performance at this tournament. And if you get a premier event and you get the premier players are going to rise to the top. So John Rahm is the number one strokes gained total in the past 5 years here. Tony Finau is number 2, and there's some interesting stuff on Tony Finau. As you can see here, he actually has played this event incredibly the past 5 years. He is averaging almost a top 5 in the past 5 years here. Patrick Reed has played well here. He's your defending champion. Mark Leishman, who won in 2020. Very good performance here. Justin Rose is a prior winner. Jason Day is a prior winner. And you hear these names. Premier players in the world. This tournament attracts the best players, generally speaking. So, Rahm, Finau, Reed, Leishman, Ryan Palmer. Look at that. He doesn't have a finish outside the top 25 in the past 5 years either. Ryan Palmer. Very good information there. He might be a sneaky wager. Those are your top 5. Justin Rose, Keegan, Hideki, Snedeker, and Jason Day are your top 10. Now, Day is interesting because he is very top-heavy in his finishes, but he also has 2 missed cuts. So he's very, very boom or bust here at the Farmers. It's good stuff. Interesting. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum here. Who just doesn't play this event well that is played here often? Nick Watney, Keith Mitchell, Jimmy Walker, Danny Lee. Again, I'm trying to find guys who have played 4 or 5 times. Kelly Craft. Let's see if we can find some. So look here, Aaron Wise, 1 for 3 with a tied for 71st. Daniel Berger, 0 for 2. Brooks, 0 for 2. Let's see some other bigger names. KH Lee, 0 for 3, all in the past 3 years. Bryson, 0 for 2. Now this is right before he went through that, big transformation of his body, so might be different now, but historically has not played this well. Munoz is up there. Let's see, anyone else that's negative? Neiman is negative, but he is 2 for 2 on cuts. Laird, Scheffler, 0 for 2. All right, good stuff. Then you have all these guys who just haven't played it in the past 5 years. Burgoon, Stallings, Mac Hughes, they're still positive, but all right. So I always like to see some guys who just don't play courses well. Ricky, whatever jokes you want to make about Ricky in the chat. Yeah, I mean, he's 2 for 5 making the cut, but 2 clunkers and 3 missed cuts. So yeah, good stuff there. So we're going to come back over here to Fantasy National. And again, usually to kind of wrap up or wind down the initial research show, I always start with the putting performance. So we're definitely going to be looking at POA. POA performance. This is on the... So you can see here, we just don't have any performance in the last 6 months on POA. So I'm going to broaden it to the last year. And we only have 14 rounds. You know what? Let's do all records, and let's see what 24 gives us. Because if it's going back to like 2019 or so, then I'm going to have to narrow it in. Yeah. See, POA is just not common. So I definitely don't want to go back to 2019. I don't want to go that far back. So let's keep it within the last 12 months. We'll keep it at 24 rounds because there were a few, 3 guys that had 14. Let's see how far back. Okay, so the Farmers. Okay, that works. So from the Farmers to last year to today, your top performers on POA, not Fast or Lightning yet. These are just the best performing putters on POA in the past year. Bryce Garnett, JT Poston, Ryan Palmer, Mark Leishman, and Hank Lebioda are your top 5, followed by Matt Jones, Will Zalatoris, Sepp Straka, Xander, and Charlie Hoffman. There's your top 10 on performance on POA. Interesting. All right. Excuse me. So Will Zalatoris coming off a fantastic opening to his year at the Amex, tied for 6th. What's he done here? So because putting is generally his nemesis. He putt well at the Genesis, gaining strokes and putting all 4 rounds. At Pebble Beach, the Pro-Am, he gained 2 of the 3, and then he gained a lot in 2 of the 3 last year at the Farmers. So Will Zalatoris apparently likes POA. Let's see. Yeah, it's the only surface he actually gained strokes putting. Interesting. Very interesting. I am curious to see how the Amex came out for him. It is Bermuda, but still, he has been putting better of late. At least the measure grounds. Now, Mayakoba, Zozo, we don't know. But, Sanderson Farms, he top 15. Had a very good week or tournament on the greens. the Wyndham, the St. Jude. He performed well. So I'm interested to see what the Amex shows us in putting. Let's add Fast and Lightning and see what that gives us in terms of POA. So looks like there was one round removed. Let's see if I can find it, which one it was. Did I click on Jones last time? Yeah, I must have. Farmers. So it looks like there was a round at Pebble that is removed from. So one of the rounds at Pebble last year was average speed POA. So of the guys that performed the best on Fast and Lightning speed POA greens, there's still some overlap. Bryce Garnett is still number 1. JT Poston, Ryan Palmer, Mark Leishman, and Matt Jones are your top 5, followed by Hank Lebioda, Doug Gim, Will Zalatoris, Xander, and Sepp Straka. So quite a bit of overlap. Bryce Garnett is first in both for pure POA performance and fast POA performance. Jones is up there, Lebioda, Zalatoris, Xander, Sepp Straka. Guys to circle if you value putting, especially POA-based POA performance putting. Easy enough for you to say. We noticed how strokes gained approach is just so valuable here. Let's take a look at the top strokes gained approach. I'm definitely going to bring this down to the last 6 months. We'll go 36 rounds for now. Strokes gained approach. Daniel Berger, Hudson Swafford, your now winner of the Amex. Justin Thomas, Taylor Gooch, and Mito Pereira, your top 5. Rounding out the top 10 are Hideki, Shez Reavie, Aaron Rai, Bronson Burgoon, and Keegan Bradley. Let's add the let's just add the long filter. We're definitely going to go into a lot of depth in the Data Dive show, breaking down long and difficult and approach and all that stuff. But your top performers on long courses, strokes gained approach: Charlie Hoffman, Matthew Neesmith, Corey Connors, Kyle Stanley, and Hank Lebioda, your top 5. Followed by Patton Kazire, Miano Grillo, Tom Hoagy, Daniel Berger, and John Rahm. Those are your top 10 strokes gained approach players on long courses. So good stuff there. A couple more things to look at here on Fantasy National for the initial research. Let's take a look at proximity. Let's take a look at proximity. And no, well, I tell you what. Let me find last year's tournament in which it doesn't look like he played. So if Gim didn't play it, Siwoo, let's just find Patrick Reed, because I know he obviously won. Of course, I can't find him very quickly. Nope. Well, if I could type, that would help. Patrick Reed. Let's find last year's leaderboard. And let's just take a quick look and see if indeed the proximities of 175 to 200 and 200 plus played an important factor. So proximities. Well, 175 to 200 did not matter at all. I mean, nothing here. You have Zalatoris, was about 10th. He did top 10, but there is absolutely no correlation here for extreme success. None. 200 plus, a little bit more. Not necessarily extreme upper tier success. You do have your cut makers in here and a few good performances. So Molinari led, he top 10. Louis was a top 30. Malnati top 10, 2 more top 20s. A runner-up, a top 10. So I would say this is a little bit of a correlation here, at least for the cut makers. So this might not be bad to take a look at for some DFS stuff of some guys who might be getting ignored. Maybe a 6K play if you're having to throw darts in DFS. Maybe you can maybe find somebody that is good at this length of approach. Could have a factor, but overall it's not the strongest. All right, so and this again was just 2021. We'll look previous years as well to see if there's more of a correlation. But let's see, last year distance 16th, 10th, 2 top 10s. You have a miscut and a lot of middlings. Do fairways matter? A little bit. Not terribly strong though either. Victor, Norlander, your winner, top 20s. Okay. So you have some cut makers in here for sure. Finding the fairways. Greens. Greens and regulation. Still not as strong as I thought. 16, 10, 7, 10, 30. Yeah. That's the strongest we've seen so far is greens and regulation gained. Good drives, more of the same. Looks like a lot of the same people, to be honest. So, okay. So distance didn't matter, or at least not as much as you would have maybe initially thought for the length of the course. Fairways, somewhat. Birdies and bogeys. This is the one I really kind of want to look at because eagles probably won't matter at all because there's very few to be had. Yeah, I mean look at all these miscuts here that had an eagle or so. Birdies. Okay. Somewhat. You would think it'd be a lot stronger. I mean, you have some pretty middling performances for some high some high birdie rates. So Doug Gim, 37th. Ortiz was a 30th. Outside the top 30, outside the top 40. Bogeys? Yeah, there we go. Look at this. 18th, second. Still top 30. Top 10, top 20. So top 10, top 20. So much more important to avoid the bogeys than it is to gain the birdies. And that's generally the way I feel when I come in, or at least initially looking at a course or a tournament. Does the tournament play easy? You focus on birdies. The tournament plays difficult. You focus on avoiding bogeys. Yeah, I think that's good for tonight in Fantasy National. Last thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to switch over here to Microsoft Excel. Let's transition over there. And I had this last week for the DFS Tactics show, and it got a little bit of love, so I brought it back for the entire week here. This is a color-coordinated chart of prior performance here just at the Farmers Insurance. And that's the past 5 years. It's been at Torrey Pines for a long time, so I just go back to the last 5 years. So you see here, this is sorted by the average finish. So this is average per year. Tony Finau, he's played 5 times. He's averaged a 6th place finish. Rahm's played it 5 times, averages 9th. Palmer 4 times, averages 10th. Reed, and so on. We noticed that Ryan Palmer has done all of his damage in strokes gained approaches, which you like to see. That is what this course demands. It's interesting to see that he is pretty bad around the green, considering around the green is more important than off the tee. But you really want to see the guys who are really taking advantage in the strokes gained approach, because that has consistently been the most important part of taking advantage of Torrey Pines. So you got Ryan Palmer here, Keegan Bradley, who's always played well here, or at least in the past 5 years. 4 events, never missed a cut, averages a top 15 finish. Very good with his irons. Leishman and Wolf. Look at Leishman. All in approach and a lot of putting. Boy, it's either he likes Torrey Pines, he likes the Poa Greens, or he just has had a few good weeks. But with the performance of 5 years, if it was 1 year or 2 years, I'd be more willing to write that off as an outlier, good week, whatnot. 5 years and you gain 4 strokes per year, 4.5 strokes per year, that's saying something. So Mark Leishman's one to look at this week. Let's see, who else might be? Matthew Neesmith, of course, he always is very good in the iron department. Really can't do a damn thing else. Who else might be some hidden gems here? Tom Hoagy, coming off a runner-up at the Amex this week. He's always a very good iron player, very good ball striker. He's actually positive in putting here. Something to take note. Interesting. Doc Redman, can't putt worth a lick, but he's got some good iron play. Let me freeze the top row here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to freeze these panes. Let's take a look at a couple other things here. We saw that the proximities might not be too important. If a column is blank, that just means that Torrey Pines, for example, has no par 5s that are 0 to 500. They also have no par 5s that are 650 plus. That's all that means. Let's look at the proximities here. So 200 plus was the strongest of them. If there was a correlation last year, that is Keegan Bradley. So he's got all of the iron play and the approaching, or approaches from 200 plus. A good combination. Joseph Bramlett, 200 plus, good. Who's really bad? Neesmith, really. So Neesmith gained a lot in strokes gained approach, but is atrocious in long irons. Alrighty. Interesting stuff there. So I'll definitely be using this a lot in the Data Dive and the DFS Tactics show. I referenced it in the DFS portion last week. Some of you all liked it, so I decided to bring it back this week. The last thing I'm going to do for you all is a course comparison, at least what matters at the Farmers. This really helped me for the Amex this week. Just trying to really fine-tune my data model. So for those who have missed this explanation, I have a whole video on this. It's in the standalone kind of playlist. It's the comparison course methodology. But basically what this is, the lower the number, the stronger the correlation to upper tier success at this tournament. So, for example, strokes gained approach is a 43, so it's basically hand in hand with strokes gained putting here at the Farmers. You see here, driving distance really hasn't mattered, not nearly as much as these two. Fairways doesn't matter seemingly at all, whereas good drives and greens do. There's the birdies and the bogeys that we kind of looked at. It's surprising to me. Well, that makes sense. Last year, it was the bogeys that was the most important, but it looks like the birdies gained have been the more consistent metric across the 5 years here at the Farmers. It just so happened last year avoiding the bogeys was more important. Let's see, as we scroll across here, par 3s, 46. Par 4s is 27. 27 is actually fairly high. I know that's low in comparison to the other statistics here at Torrey Pines, but 27 across other courses is actually pretty high. So the par 4s are definitely, I don't want to say neutralized, but their importance is watered down, especially by these par 5s. I mean, this is a low number for the importance or the significance of par 5s. 35, that's one of the lowest I've seen for par fives. Okay, so we were talking about the Arnold Palmer Bay Hill as a possible comparison course. Look here, its par fives of importance are at 31 and a half. Very, very good comp there. The Genesis 38 is comparable. Okay, so that could make some pretty good deduction there. Proximities, it looks like total, but if there is one, it is the 200 plus. Okay, that looks to be maybe an outlier because all of them are, right at the 60 mark. You had a 70 and then a 73. Whereas these others, these are very volatile. You can see you have as low as 58, as high as 72. Like you look here, you've got a 58 and a 91. So this from year to year is unstable. I much prefer something that, even though this has one outlier here, I much prefer a stable looking matters. What's the word I'm looking for? A stable year-over-year metric, even if it's maybe not as important. As long as it's stable, you know that that's some decent data. So that's good to see there. This one's somewhat stable. Well, you have these two that are really throwing it off. This right here is highlighting what I was mentioning earlier for this course, whereas the bogeys and the birdies. That's what I was. So while we looked at Fantasy National in that 2021, the bogeys were more important than the birdies. This is actually pretty volatile. You've got 25 and you got in between 25 and 40, whereas in the birdies, this is very, very stable. 23 and a half is the lowest, 29 and a half is the highest. That's very, very stable. That is something that I put a lot of value on when a statistic is stable like this. So instead of going bogeys avoided, this is telling me that I should probably look at birdies on difficult. Very interesting. I would have never thought of that, but that's the power of data. Last thing I'm going to show you all, because this is the detailed version. This is a summary of the course and the metric in comparison to other courses. So the best way I can explain it, Farmers Insurance strokes gained off the tee is 10% less important than the average course. So for like this past week at the American Express off the tee was basically about as average importance across other courses, at least with full course event or full field events, excuse me. So I negate the Masters, or I remove the Masters. It's a very small field. I removed like the majors for now. I removed the St. Jude because it has been an invitational. I removed the BMW. It's only 70 players. So of the events that are full field events, this is what these are trying to measure. So you can see that even though strokes gained approach is still very important here at Torrey Pines, it's actually 16% less important than the average course for strokes gained approach. It's the around the green that is coming close to the course average. And if we look at the Genesis, a comp course, it's above. And if we go to the Arnold Palmer, it's above. So that gives me a lot of confidence too that maybe we should be looking at around the green this week. I'm always going to be looking at strokes gained approach. It's just the kind of player I value, but this is telling me that I should be looking at strokes gained around the green as well, considering this is very close to full field course averages, and the two comp courses are above importance. Let's see. Driving distance, it does matter more here. Birdies, more important here. This is what we saw in the stability metric. So this one is stable and is more important than the bogeys. Par threes, a little bit less important than most. Par fours are deflated, like I was mentioning. That number was actually fairly high. It's 19%. But look at the par fives here. These are actually 4% more important than other full field courses. So very good stuff to look at there. We're definitely going to be looking at par fives. And it doesn't look like there's much of a combination, not combination. It doesn't look like either of the ranges are important per se. Sorry, let me remove that comment. Then proximities. Proximities, if there is one, it looks like it's 200 plus, but we'll go over that in the data dive show. Good stuff there. All right, guys, I believe that is going to do it for the initial research for the farmers. So with that, for any early wagers that you've thought about making at the Farmers Insurance for this week, and until I see you tomorrow night for the data dive show, may all your bets be profitable.